Welcome to the Cabral Concept, where board-certified naturopath and integrative health practitioner Dr. Stephen Cabral shares how he was diagnosed at the age of 17 with a life-altering illness and given no hope for recovery. It was only after studying and traveling all over the world did he discover how to combine ancient Ayurvedic healing practices with state-of-the-art naturopathic and functional medicine to fully rebalance the body and re-energize it with life. It's time to discover how to get well, lose weight, and finally feel alive again. And now, here's your host, Dr. Stephen Cabral.
Welcome, everyone. We're here today on episode 2412 of the Cabral Concept. Today's topic of the day is how to get rid of burping and gas. So a couple of today's shows are actually going to be a little bit more in-depth from the Cabral House Calls. So the Cabral House Calls are on the weekend. That's where we answer our community's questions. Well over 5,000 questions answered now just on the podcast from the community. Been a lot of fun answering these now for 6+ years. And whenever I think that it's a more popular topic and I haven't gone in depth on it, I like to make a 15 to 20 minute actual show out of it so that I can point back to it. So just always remember, most of the topics about health and wellness and weight loss and weight gain and longevity, I have covered to some degree. So you're actually able to search for these shows at stephencabral.com/podcast. And there's an archive now of 2,412 shows. So you can use the search box. You can just type in one thing like burping and it'll pull up all the podcasts just on burping. But also what we've done at the top of that page is create images and actually categories based on digestion, hormones, sleep, longevity, viral factors, etc. So you're welcome to explore, use the podcast as an archive and really go in depth and hopefully listen to it as many as you'd like on really trying to become an expert in your own right on a particular topic. And that's really what this is all about. So learning, sharing, and then hopefully you'll pass it on to others as well. All right, let's get into today's topic. So I've gone over acid reflux. I've gone over a lot of different factors for burping in the past, but never really a comprehensive show. So why don't we do that here today? All right, so what's the first reason for burping and or gas? Think of burping and gas. There's actually different reasons. We'll explore those today. But one, the gas is essentially building up in your stomach. So if we want to think about it, I've got my buddy here today, Walter. If you're watching this on video, Walter's been with me now for many, many years. I think 2010 or so. So 22 plus years here. But if we take off his lungs as we look at this, and again, it's okay if you're not watching this on video, we'll just take out his heart. We'll take out his liver. And what we're left with then, okay, we have the stomach here. So what we're going to see is we've got about a 16-inch or so esophagus coming from the mouth all the way down into the stomach, and then this is the connection right into the stomach here. So the stomach is going to essentially inflate with food as the food starts to come into it. And what happens is at the top of that stomach and the bottom of the esophagus, kind of right below where like the middle of your rib cage is, as your rib cage, your solar plex meets, let's call it your stomach, there's a muscle there called your lower esophageal sphincter. All right, why is that so important? Why am I talking about that little muscle right there? Well, that is what does not allow essentially gas and acid and food to come back up the esophagus. It's supposed to be a one-way street. The problem is when we eat certain foods or you have a hiatal hernia or something like that, and we'll go through a lot of these items here today, is you can actually have gas come back up. So it's coming from the stomach and it's being burped back up. Okay. So what is one reason for this? Well, the first one is fermentable-based foods. So fermentable foods are not bad for you. There's a lot of prebiotics in them. However, if you do not have the digestive capacity to break them down, and a lot of that's going to be about stomach acid here today, you could very likely end up having those ferment in the stomach, meaning they're just going to last and stay in the stomach for maybe a half hour to an hour or 2-3 hours longer than they should. And when that happens, those fermentable foods begin to give off gas, okay? So when that gas is given off, it comes up in the form of a belch or a burp. That's one way to look at it. Others are foods that, yes, they can be fermentable, but you just don't digest them very well. One of those could be lactose for some people. So some people, when they have dairy that has lactose in it, they could cause burping and or gas as well. So certain foods for certain people, think beans, think certain types of vegetables, certain types of fruit can cause gas for some people. Now, if you were to eat fruit that might often give people a gas when it's taken with food, and you were to have that on an empty stomach, well, then that food is able to move right through the stomach as it's supposed to within 20, 30, 40 minutes. And then there's no actual burping or gas because the food is not being held up in the stomach because of the other foods that it's mixed with. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to link up a bunch of shows here today. If you head on over to StephenCabral.com/2012, I'm going to link up a show on food layering and food combining that tells you really how to eat foods together or not together for the ease of digestion. All right. So number 2, what's a second thing that can cause burping and or gas? Carbonated beverages. Now, this one might be apparent to you, but I had to add it to the list because if you're drinking, well, one of my favorite beverages is something like a sparkling Mountain Valley water or a sparkling Pellegrino water or a Gerolsteiner water. Those are mineral waters, and then there's carbon dioxide in them. I don't drink those all the time, but I enjoy having them with a meal because I'm typically not drinking any alcohol or anything else really besides water or a smoothie, right? So if you drink these things, well, it may cause some type of burping from the excess carbon dioxide building up in the stomach, and then you burping it back up. That can happen. Okay. Number 3 is this. This third one is going to cause so many of the issues here that we're talking about here today, and that's low stomach acid. And low stomach acid, simply put, allows bacteria to build up in the stomach. It allows foods to stay in the stomach longer than they should because foods are only meant to be in your stomach for maybe anywhere from 30 minutes to 2 to 3 hours, depending on the complexity of the meal, especially the heavier the protein, the longer it simply takes to break down. Or if you don't chew your food, it's going to stay in your stomach a bit longer as well to break that down with stomach acid. Now, again, a lot of people are worried about stomach acid because they don't want acid reflux. In most cases, stomach acid is not causing, meaning high stomach acid is not the result leading to acid reflux. Again, I have a separate show on acid reflux that we can try to link up for you. But acid reflux is a breakdown with a dysfunction in what's called a hiatal hernia or the lower esophageal sphincter or multiple other cases, high histamines. And it's not typically the acid itself because when you eat food, you're supposed to produce stomach acid. So that's the problem is that when you eat food about 20, 30 minutes after you start to eat, you should produce stomach acid. That starts to break down the food, especially the protein. Allows it to turn to more of a liquefied form and then move into your intestines to be further broken down and utilized from there. So the issue is, again, when something's imbalanced with the stomach, like this next one, number 4, H. pylori, that this can become a larger issue. So H. pylori, Helicobacter pylori is a type of bacteria. It's one of the big 4 things that I talk about all the time that can go wrong with your digestive system. You've got H. pylori, you've got parasites, you have yeast overgrowth, or you have bacterial overgrowth, right? So those are the big 4 things that go wrong. And believe it or not, low stomach acid can allow for H. pylori. It can allow for parasites because they're not killed in the stomach acid, and it can actually cause SIBO and the yeast overgrowth as well, because what's happening is the proper acid production in the stomach, believe it or not, then allows for more bile to drop down. So here's our liver. That bile is going to be able to mix in the first part of the small intestine and then eventually balance out pH. So if pH is not low enough, that can allow bacteria or yeast to grow in the intestines. Really important to know that. Just again, so important. And that's why people on Prilosec, Zantac, Nexium, or any type of acid blocker, the majority of their life, or even after 2 weeks or so, can cause serious digestive issues. All right. So let's always keep that in mind. So H. pylori, we need to make sure that we eliminate that. If you have H. pylori, how do you test for it? Really, the only good way to test for it is a bacteria and parasite stool test. You can see the lab that we use in our practice at StephenCabral.com/labs. That's the bacteria and parasite stool test. Peptic ulcer can be another reason for burping and belching. Oftentimes, this can be caused by H. pylori or stomach acid imbalances, or taking things like Advil, ibuprofen, especially on an empty stomach, can certainly cause ulcers as well. All right, the 6th reason out of 9 reasons is, believe it or not, stomach acid itself. Stomach acid could cause burping. How is that possible? Well, a lot of people who have indigestion in stomach acid, they continue to keep swallowing and swallowing. And what that does is it leads to our 7th reasons for burping and gas, and that is something called aerophagia or aerophagia. And all that means, it's a fancy word for swallowing air. And people do this when nervous. People do this when anxious. They do it when they have acid reflux and they continue to swallow. Well, they're not swallowing just air into their lungs. They're actually swallowing air into their stomach. Their stomach begins to expand with air. What happens is that compression then forces that muscle, that lower esophageal sphincter, which keeps the stomach as a one-way street from the esophagus, well, it forces that open, causing burping or gas to come up. All right, so that is a big reason why as well. So just think about that. Do you burp more? Do you have, just put it this way. Do you burp more when you have more anxiety? Or do you do so, again, when you're feeling you have a lot more stomach acid? All right, number 8 goes a little bit more into disease pathogenesis, low thyroid, diabetes, Parkinson's, other metabolic conditions can cause burping. And you might say, how is that possible? Well, the reason is it slows something called gastroparesis. And basically, I refer to it more as just overall slowing of the peristaltic movement. What does that mean? It slows digestion. So it slows food movement through the stomach. It slows food movement through the intestines as well. So it could lead to constipation. It could lead to loose stool. It could lead to bacterial-based imbalances, and certainly can lead to burping, belching, and gas. Because whenever you slow down that peristaltic movement, what does it do? Well, it allows food and bacteria to build up to a greater degree, causing our 9th one and our last one, which is IBS and IBD. So irritable bowel syndrome is basically irritable bowel disease, or I should say irritable bowel disease is the irritable bowel syndrome after it's been going on for quite some time. So we just call it the chronic version of it. Well, what does it mean? Well, let me just give you a little picture here. So if you have low stomach acid or weak digestion, and that then slows the digestion and stomach acid from coming into your first part of your small intestine called the duodenum. What happens is that not enough bile gets dropped down from the bile ducts of the liver. There can be gallbladder dysfunction. So you might have some pain underneath the right side of your rib cage. And then what happens is parasites can move in because there's not enough stomach acid to kill them. You can also have yeast overgrowth because the pH begins to rise inside the small intestine. And if the pH really goes above a 7 in your small intestine, it's much more of a ripe condition for yeast to grow. Not enough acid, not enough bile to basically detoxify that small intestine. Bacteria will begin to overgrow as well. So you can have good bacteria there. It can just be overgrown. So now you have an overgrowth of bacteria. We call that SIBO, small intestinal bacterial overgrowth. And what happens now is we build up more fermentable-based gases. So yeast can ferment things. Bacteria can begin to ferment. It can give off things like sulfur and methane, which causes gas, not burping, but the other end, right? So now you have gas, and people are often wondering, well, like, why does this only happen with this food, or why is it now chronic? Well, what can happen is your actual digestive system can begin to slow and change. And that actually comes down to the terrain. So that means like how fertile or how balanced is the intestinal tract. That's basically the soil, the garden. So we need to make sure that it's balanced, that there's not too much or too little bacteria, that there's not too much or too little yeast or candida, that there's no parasite overgrowth, and certainly there's no H. pylori further up. So when you look at a digestive-based dysfunction, burping and gas are really just symptoms of an imbalanced digestive system. Now, maybe it's just the stomach, okay? So maybe it's just the stomach. Well, good. Then there's less to work on. So you want to work on actually improving then digestion or eliminating the foods for you that might be more prone to burping, all right? So then we need to look also downstream. So if daily digestive enzymes or ginger tea or digestive bitters or a little ACV and water with a meal helped with your burping and belching, great. Okay, so good. We built up a little bit more digestive strength, digestive fire, as they call it in Ayurveda, the Agni, fantastic. But if you're still getting the fermenting going on in the intestines, which leads to the bloating and the gas, okay, then we need to look further down, and the best labs for that are the bacteria and parasite stool test, as well as the candida metabolic and vitamins test. That's going to test you for your candida levels, your bacterial levels, your parasites. And then if needed, again, you'll do something like the CBO protocol in order to rebalance that digestive system. So what I try to share with you on hopefully all these shows is just that there's always a reason why. There's always an underlying root cause to these things, and you don't always want to mask the symptoms. Because if you mask the symptoms, you're pretending that everything's fine. When your body's actually telling you, listen, we have a imbalance here. There's a dysfunction. I'm burping because there's low stomach acid, or there's a lower esophageal sphincter issue, or there's a food that is not working well, or a food combining issue. So I always say, listen to your body. Your body is teaching you, it's telling you, it's communicating with you. And then you can begin to run your own protocol, run your own lab with your favorite integrative health practitioner, naturopathic doctor, or of course with our team over at Equalife. It's completely up to you. Hopefully this podcast was helpful. If it was, always feel free to share it with anyone you believe it could help. And if you ever have any questions, feel free to reach out. You can submit them right inside of cabralsupportgroup.com. Take care, everyone. Have an amazing day, and I'll be back tomorrow with another Cabral concept. Are you ready to heal yourself and then go on to heal others? If so, the Integrative Health Practitioner Institute can help you discover proven functional medicine protocols that blend the best of 7 different healing disciplines from around the world. I personally share with you the exact handouts and protocols I use in my private practice that enable people to get well, lose the weight, and live longer, stronger. I want to pass this information on to the next generation of health coaches, and that is exactly why I created IHP. We are the future of the health coaching industry, and the skills and knowledge you will learn will make you an in-demand certified health coach anywhere in the world. Although we have many medical professionals taking the IHP certifications, no experience is necessary, and half our members have no previous health certifications. At the Integrative Health Practitioner Institute, our motto is a health coach in every home. Our goal is that you take this knowledge and then share it with family, friends, loved ones, your community, or in a practice where you create a career you love and can be proud of. The global IHP community is filled with some of the most kind and caring people in the world, and we can't wait to welcome you into our world soon. For more information or to set up a discovery call with one of our IHP Health Coach graduates, simply head over to integrativehealthpractitioner.org.